Hello there. Welcome to Business Incorporated on Channels Television. I am Bisi Adebayo. Coming up, the Nairobi Securities Exchange declares lower half-year profit before tax of 99 million Kenyan shillings. And Africa's biggest grocer, Shoprite, reports 12% rise in annual profit. Plus, South Africa-based energy company Sasol says there could be a potential tax exposure of 11.6 billion rand for varying tax principles. Well, the stock markets in Africa is where we begin, and the numbers are all looking good at intraday. And here in Nigeria, the all-share index is seen 1.25% higher at 37,042.65 at intraday. The South African Bourse is also up 0.77%. The Egyptian stock market is trending higher at 0.34%. The Kenyan market closed 0.85% higher on Monday. And the Gulf markets aren't looking bad either at intraday. Saudi Arabia's stock market rose in early trade on the back of a further gain by Al Rajhi Bank and heavy trade in real estate investment trust, while the rest of the region barely moved. The Saudi stock index climbed 0.4%. The Dubai's index edged up 0.45% as blue-chip Emma Properties added 0.4%, but only 4 of the 10 most heavily traded stocks rose. Abu Dhabi edged down 0.46% as Dana Gas, which had soared 8.1% on Monday after reporting a sharp rise in second quarter net profit last week, pulled back 3%. Qatar's index was flat as Investment Holding Group, which plunged after listing last week following an IPO at 10 riyals per share, rebounded 3.5%. European stocks are also higher today as investors concentrate on corporate financial updates, especially from mining heavyweights. Investors are also watching for the ZEW survey on German economic sentiment for August. DW Channels TV financial correspondent Corinne Bussen is at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange to tell us how all these are impacting on market activities today. It's good to see you again, Conrad. So mining companies are the real hotspots today, reporting strong earnings, and that's thanks to stronger demand from China and higher commodity prices. Which companies were most interesting?
Well, Antofagasta, the mining company from Chile, really pleased investors very much with its very strong earnings, 88% increase of earnings in the first half of this year. The share price of Antofagasta is up, and so is the dividend. BHP Billiton is the other candidate that is worth talking about today. Also, BHP came out with a very, very strong set of results, really pleasing investors. But one particular investor recently had expressed at several occasions that he wasn't really happy about the way that BHP Billiton was managed and governed. That's Elliott Management, the hedge fund owned by Paul Singer, the US billionaire, a so-called active investor, which holds around about 5% of the shares of BHP Billiton. One of the demands that Paul Singer and his fund recently had, come out with is now going to be fulfilled. BHP Billiton plans to spin off its shale oil business in the United States, which is a business estimated to be worth about $22 billion US. The spin-off and potentially IPO of this particular business is something that pleases investors also very much. Of course, an active investor getting involved here, putting pressure on management so that, the shareholders get a higher share. That's good news for many investors on the market. The share price is up significantly today.
Now, on the markets in Germany, where you are at, Conrad, investor sentiment has dropped due to recent export data, which had shown some weakness. And of course, the diesel crisis is worrying investors. Tell us more about those sentiment numbers.
Well, it's really, really negative news that the outlook component of the ZEW index fell so significantly. In July, it had been at 17.5 points. An average of the economists here at the exchange had thought that it would drop by about 2 points to more or less 15. What happened is that this outlook index really fell to 10. That's a significant drop. It's way lower than the long-term average of this outlook index of investor sentiment, which is more or less 24. What is behind that? Well, you already mentioned, of course, the diesel scandal. That's one factor. And the export numbers, which recently had showed some weakness. And given that the euro-dollar exchange rate is so relatively high, much stronger than what most economists have predicted, it's likely that also the earnings out of the current exports in the current month and in the coming month will suffer somewhat and come in weaker. And that is what, of course, makes investors nervous about a potential further backlash of equity prices.
The British currency, the pound sterling, has dropped again. What's behind that?
Well, negative news from the economy in the United Kingdom. In particular, consumer loans have risen. British consumers have continued to spend on consumption, which is of course good, but they're spending more and more on their credit card debt. For that, the amount of transactions via credit cards in the United Kingdom during the month of June has risen 12.3% over year. The debt on those cards has been growing 4 times faster than the household income in the United Kingdom. And that must be a warning sign for the Bank of England, which recently already at several occasions expressed concern about the high amount of consumer debt in the UK. That, of course, also is coming in light of all of the Brexit uncertainty. Not very good news and encouraging news there.
Well, we're hoping that we'll hear some good news in the coming days. Well, thank you so much, Conrad, for those updates, and see you again tomorrow.